01 Unravelling Fate, the intriguing escapade at the governor's house. In the dark and labyrinthine streets of Doskvol, where every shadow held secrets and every alleyway whispered of hidden dangers, an unlikely trio of misfits found themselves drawn together by the whims of fate. Jim Bob the Clown, with his reputation for violence preceding him like a looming storm cloud, Rabbit's Foot the Weaver, attuned to the subtle rhythms of luck that danced through the city's veins, and Jack the Boy, a cunning and opportunistic slide, each with their own motivations and desires, converged amidst the chaos and intrigue of Doskvol's underworld. Their first encounter was a serendipitous collision of circumstance. Jim Bob, seeking gainful employment in a city where opportunities were as fleeting as the mist that shrouded its streets, found himself engaged in a curious conversation with a homeless denizen of Doskvol, Mr. Marcio. Offered a handful of coins in exchange for a favor, Jim Bob's interest was piqued. Rabbit's Foot, whose keen intuition sensed the hand of fortune at play, was drawn to the scene. Meanwhile, Jack the Boy observed from the shadows, his calculating gaze sizing up the situation with the precision of a seasoned predator. Marcio, a weathered and world-weary figure with a tale to tell, spun a yarn of intrigue and danger, a secret prison hidden beneath the opulent facade of the governor's house, where a man named Jack Napier languished in chains, awaiting his fate at the hands of the city's corrupt elite. His voice was rough, his eyes haunted by the weight of his experiences. "This city," he began, his voice a rasping whisper, "it's built on secrets and lies. But some secrets, they fester. Like wounds." Jim Bob leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing. "Go on, old man. What's this got to do with us?" Marcio glanced around nervously, as if expecting the shadows to come alive. "There's a man," he continued, "Jack Napier. He's being held in a secret prison under the governor's house. Someone needs him out." Rabbit's Foot exchanged a glance with Jim Bob. "And you think we can get him out?" he asked, his voice filled with cautious optimism. Marcio nodded, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of hope and desperation. "If anyone can, it's you lot. The clown, the weaver, and the boy. Let's say I have a feeling you have a way of getting things done." Jack, still lurking in the shadows, stepped forward, his eyes cold and calculating. "What's in it for us?" he asked, his voice a soft, dangerous purr. Marcio hesitated, then reached into his tattered coat, pulling out a small, ornate box. "The Alliance of the Unseen. It may come to be of value in the future, trust me." The trio exchanged glances, a silent agreement passing between them. They would undertake this mission, not just for the potential rewards, but for the thrill of the challenge and the promise of uncovering secrets of power in Doskvol. As they made their way through the twisting streets, the city seemed to hold its breath, the fog thickening around them like a shroud. Jim Bob's heavy footsteps echoed ominously, Rabbit's Foot moved with a grace that belied his humble origins, and Jack's eyes never stopped scanning the shadows, ever watchful for threats or opportunities. Their journey took them past the grand facades of Doskvol's upper districts, where opulence and decay existed side by side, and into the heart of the city's labyrinthine underbelly. Every step they took brought them closer to the governor's house, and to the secrets that lay hidden beneath its polished exterior. Rabbit's Foot nodded, his fingers tracing the intricate patterns of his weavings for luck. "Let's hope fortune favors the bold," he murmured. Jack, ever the pragmatist, simply said to the others, "Stick to the plan, and we'll be in and out before they know what hit them." Together, they moved through the shadows, each step bringing them closer to the heart of Doskvol's darkest secrets and the chance to rewrite their own fates. With Marcio as their guide, the quartet embarked on a journey into the belly of the beast, navigating the treacherous streets of Doskvol. The city's underbelly was alive with the sounds of night, a symphony of distant shouts, clanging metal, and the occasional scream echoing through the labyrinthine alleys. They moved swiftly, shadows among shadows, until they arrived at the imposing gates of the governor's house. The governor's house stood like a fortress, its tall, iron gates and high walls a stark reminder of the power and privilege contained within. Jim Bob, with his reputation and connections, a network of shady contacts and underworld allies, secured their passage into this inner sanctum of power. Rabbit's Foot and Jack the Boy, their motivations masked beneath the guise of concerned relatives seeking justice for a wrongfully accused loved one, accompanied him. Their hearts pounded with a mixture of fear and determination as they approached the gates. "Stick to the story," Jim Bob whispered, his voice low and urgent. "We're family, here to see our kin. Let me do the talking." Marcio, now transformed into a makeshift ally and disguised as a member of the prison's security detail, led the way. His once weary demeanor was now replaced with a steely resolve, a man on a mission. He exchanged a few words with the gatekeepers, his disguise and the quartet's fabricated story enough to grant them entry. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The opulence of the governor's house contrasted sharply with the grim purpose of their visit. Ornate chandeliers cast flickering shadows on the walls, and the rich, dark wood of the interior exuded an air of old money and corruption. The quartet was ushered into a lavish waiting room, where they were told to wait until they could be seen. Plush chairs and ornate tables filled the room, but none of it could ease the anxiety gnawing at their insides. Jack shifted restlessly in his seat, his patience wearing thin. "We can't just sit here forever," he muttered to Marcio, who nodded in agreement. "All right, let's do something about it," Marcio whispered back. He turned to the guard standing near the door. "Excuse me, we need to use the restroom." The guard grunted and nodded, gesturing for another guard to escort them. They were led down a series of hallways, the opulence of the surroundings contrasting with the tension in their hearts. As they reached the restrooms, Marcio moved quickly. In a swift motion, he attacked the guard, catching him by surprise. "What are you doing?" Jack hissed, alarmed. Marcio didn't reply immediately. He subdued the guard and began to strip him of his uniform. "Trust me," he finally said. "We need to blend in." Jack helped, albeit reluctantly, and they hid the unconscious guard in a nearby closet. Just as Jack was about to question the plan further, Marcio suddenly turned on him, his eyes dark with intent. "What the hell?" Jack exclaimed, instinctively stepping back. Marcio lunged, but instead of delivering a blow, he whispered urgently, "Play along." He swung at Jack, who dodged and ran down the hallway, spooked and confused. Jack glanced back to see Marcio vanish into the shadows. Had he betrayed them? The doubt gnawed at him as he made his way back to the waiting room, breathless and anxious. As he burst back into the waiting room, Jim Bob and Rabbit's Foot looked up in alarm. "Where's Marcio?" Rabbit's Foot demanded. "I don't know," Jack panted. He attacked me. But I think he was trying to tell me something." "Did he betray us?" Jim Bob growled, fists clenching. "I don't know," Jack repeated, frustration and confusion battling for dominance in his voice. "We'll have to find out soon." They couldn't dwell on Marcio's motives for long. Their mission was still at hand, and the clock was ticking. As they steeled themselves for what lay ahead, the shadows of the governor's house seemed to grow longer, more sinister, hinting at the dangers and secrets that awaited them. The tension in the room escalated as they were finally called to see the captain of the police force protecting the governor's house, Captain Merrick Ishtar. As they were escorted through the opulent hallways, their footsteps echoing on the marble floors, one of the guards winked subtly at Jack. Recognition dawned on him, it was Marcio, cleverly disguised as one of the guards. "This way," Marcio said, his voice steady, giving nothing away as he led them deeper into the heart of the building. They were led into a grand chamber where Captain Merrick Ishtar awaited them. A stern and uncompromising guardian of the city's secrets, Ishtar's eyes narrowed as he regarded the newcomers with suspicion and skepticism. His presence was commanding, his uniform pristine, and his demeanor exuded authority. "You may leave us," Ishtar commanded, dismissing the guards with a wave of his hand. Marcio gave a slight nod to Jack before exiting, blending seamlessly back into his role. The group understood now, this was a good plan. They stood before Captain Ishtar, steeling themselves for the confrontation ahead, aware that their mission had only just begun. "State your business," Ishtar demanded, his voice cold and clipped. Jim Bob stepped forward, his face a mask of earnest concern. "Captain Ishtar, we're here to see our brother, Jack Napier. He's been wrongfully accused, and we demand justice." Ishtar's gaze flicked to Marcio, who stood at attention, playing his part convincingly. "And who are you?" Ishtar asked, his tone skeptical. Marcio saluted crisply. "New recruit, sir. Assigned to escort these visitors." Ishtar's eyes narrowed further, but he nodded. "Very well. Follow me." They were led through a maze of corridors, the air growing colder and damper with each step. The deeper they ventured, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. Finally, they arrived at a heavy, reinforced door. Ishtar produced a key, the metal clinking ominously as he unlocked it. Captain Ishtar led the group to a small, dimly lit room to interrogate the visitors. His questions were relentless, and his piercing gaze bore down on them like a relentless storm. Jack, sensing that their ruse was unraveling, orchestrated a diversion. With a discreet press of a remote detonator, an explosion rocked the foundations of the governor's house, sending shockwaves through the corridors and momentarily distracting Ishtar from his relentless questioning. "Stay here," Ishtar commanded, his tone sharp as he excused himself to investigate the disturbance. Left under the watchful eye of a guard, who unbeknownst to Ishtar was Marcio in disguise, the trio quickly devised their next move. As the chaos outside intensified, Jim Bob noticed a gleam behind Ishtar's desk. There, resting in an ornate stand, was a golden rod. It emanated immense power, its surface intricately carved with ancient symbols, and it seemed to hum with a hidden energy. It was foolish of Ishtar to leave such a powerful artifact unattended. "Look at that," Jim Bob whispered, his eyes wide with intrigue. "We can't leave that behind." When they were alone, Jim Bob reached behind the desk and carefully lifted the rod. The moment his fingers touched it, a surge of power coursed through him. The rod was heavier than it looked, its golden surface warm to the touch. "Let's get moving," Jack urged, his voice low but urgent. "We need to find Jack Napier's cell." Guided by Marcio, they slipped out of the interrogation room and ventured deeper into the labyrinthine corridors of the governor's house. The walls seemed to close in around them, the shadows flickering with unseen dangers. They navigated past lurking guards and treacherous traps, their hearts pounding in unison as they pressed forward. As they navigated the halls, the group found many different rooms. Most were locked, their contents hidden from prying eyes. From some, they could hear muffled voices and decided against entering. They came across one door that led to an exit, a potential escape route if things went awry. Finally, they discovered another door that opened into an extended underground corridor lined with cells on each side. Jack, Rabbit, and Jim Bob huddled together, whispering about how to proceed. Their breath hung in the cool, damp air as they debated their next steps. Suddenly, Marcio took the initiative. Without hesitation, he walked ahead, his voice echoing through the corridor as he called out, "Jack, Jack, Jackie, Jack. Jack Napier. We came to save you. It's not your time yet." The trio watched Marcio with a mix of surprise and curiosity. They followed him cautiously, their eyes darting between the cells. Finally, a figure stirred on a bed inside one of the cells, looking confused at Marcio but remaining silent. Marcio stepped closer, meeting the man's gaze. "Get up, Jack Napier," Marcio said firmly. "It's your lucky day." The man smiled, stood up, and approached the door. "What's the plan here?" he asked, his voice steady despite the situation. Marcio unlocked the cell door, the metal creaking softly. "We're getting you out," he replied, starting to strip off his guard disguise. "You'll take my place. I'll stay here as a prisoner while you leave with them." Jack Napier nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. He quickly stripped off his prison clothes and handed them to Marcio. As they exchanged outfits, the trio kept watch, their nerves on edge. "Don't worry," Marcio said as he pulled on the rough prison garments. "I'll be fine. Just get him out of here." Jim Bob clapped Marcio on the shoulder. "You're a brave man, Marcio. We'll make sure your sacrifice isn't in vain." Marcio, now dressed as a prisoner, stepped into the cell. Jack Napier, in the guard's uniform, stepped out and joined the group. "Let's move," Jack said, taking the lead. As they retraced their steps, they moved swiftly but cautiously, aware of the guards that could appear at any moment. They navigated back through the labyrinthine corridors, avoiding the rooms with voices and keeping an eye out for any threats. As they approached the exit door, their hearts pounded in their chests. The escape route was so close, but one final obstacle stood in their way, a guard, his eyes sharp and his posture alert. Jack and Rabbit exchanged a glance, their minds racing to come up with a plausible story. Jack, always quick on his feet, stepped forward with a confident smile. "Excuse me, sir," Jack began, his voice steady. "We need to leave the building immediately. We're part of the team investigating the bomb attack. This is our escort," he gestured to Jack Napier, now clad in a guard's uniform, "who's ensuring we get out safely through the back." The guard's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "I haven't heard anything about this," he said, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Rabbit chimed in, his voice urgent. "The explosion caused a lot of chaos. Communications are down. We're just following orders to ensure the investigation team is safe." The guard seemed unconvinced, but Jack Napier stepped forward, his demeanor calm and authoritative. "Look, mate, I don't have all day. These two need to be debriefed outside, away from potential threats. You want to be responsible for holding up an official investigation." The guard hesitated, his grip tightening on his weapon. Jack Napier's eyes locked onto the guard's, his expression hardening. "Open the door. Now." Finally, the guard relented, his hand moving to unlock the door. "Fine, but if I hear any trouble, I'm coming after you lot." Jack flashed a quick smile. "Wouldn't have it any other way." The door creaked open, and they hurried through, the cold night air hitting their faces like a slap. They didn't stop until they were well away from the governor's house, their breath coming in ragged gasps. "That was too close," Rabbit muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Who the hell is this guy, anyway?" Jack Napier, still in his guard uniform, smirked. "Just a guy who got lucky, thanks to you lot." As the days passed, they anxiously scanned the newspapers, waiting for news of their daring escape. When the headline finally appeared, it sent a chill down their spines: "Terror at the door of Doskvol, Jerome Valeska escapes from governor's house." Rabbit's eyes widened as he read the article aloud. "They got the name wrong. This isn't Jack Napier. This is someone else entirely. Who the hell is Jerome Valeska?" Jim Bob, fists clenched in frustration, growled, "Did Marcio lie to us? Was this all some setup?" Jack paced the room, his mind racing. "We need answers. If Marcio tricked us, why? And why is Jerome Valeska considered such a threat?" The article described Jerome Valeska as a madman, a criminal mastermind who had terrorized Doskvol with bombings, kidnappings, and acts of terror. The city was in a state of panic, fearing his return. Rabbit shook his head, the weight of their mistake settling on his shoulders. "We broke out the wrong man. But why did Marcio want us to free Valeska? And where is Jack Napier?" Jim Bob slammed his fist on the table. "We can't let this slide. We need to find Marcio and get to the bottom of this." Jack nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed. This mystery is just beginning. We need to stay together and figure this out. If Valeska is as dangerous as they say, we need to know what we're dealing with." As they set out to unravel the truth, a sense of determination settled over the group. They had freed a man who was now a greater threat to Doskvol than they could have imagined. The stakes were higher than ever, and the need to uncover the mystery behind Jerome Valeska and his connection to Jack Napier was more urgent than ever. Their journey would lead them deeper into the shadows of Doskvol, where danger and intrigue lurked around every corner. But they were resolved to face whatever came their way, driven by a shared purpose and the bond forged through their trials. They would find Marcio, discover the truth, and confront the chaos they had inadvertently unleashed upon the city.